London Property, home of Super Prime, where you can find informative, educational and entertaining content covering all aspects of property.
Hello and welcome to the London Property Podcast. I'm your host Farnaz, and today we're in conversation with Pritesh Lad, who is running a family business. You're the third generation of running the successful business of construction and bespoke joinery. Welcome to our podcast.
Hi Farnaz, very lovely to have you here in our offices today and workshop, so thank you.
Pleasure. It was always nice to talk to people who are running a family business, because I feel the passion that drives a family business makes such a difference to the outcome for the customers. So let's start by talking about, it was your grandfather who set up the business.
That's correct, yes.
And tell us about how it all started with him and kind of where the talent came from.
So my grandfather used to have a workshop in Uganda, and obviously when they came here, moved to the UK, he got into construction. Him and my father used to work really close together. And over the years, my father slowly, gradually took over the construction company, grew the company into, a small, medium-sized, successful company within London, had a really good reputation. At that time, it was called Lad Construction. But unfortunately passed away sort of 16 years ago. And I set up a company called Ethos Construction, purely because there's a certain way in which we do business, the way we treat our staff, the way we treat our employee, the people we work with, the subcontractors, the clients. I think every time we would go to an interview, we'd always start off the interview, our ethos is, and it just felt right that, to choose that name and continue the legacy of what my grandfather and father had taught me throughout the years. And it was not just what they had taught me, it's also from working with different types of people within the industry, architects, engineers, designers. So it was fascinating growing up within that environment and learning so much, which has actually enabled me to make the businesses more successful than when they had them.
So talking about growing up in the business and the things that you learned from your father and grandfather, so as a child, what were the sorts of things that you got exposed to and did? I mean, it must have been really exciting being around construction as a boy.
In the younger years, it was great because as a child, 8, 9 years old, going to a building site, wearing a hard hat, messing around in the mud, lifting tools was fantastic. And it was actually, without you realizing, you actually learn a lot just by being in an environment of, different types of trades. You'd see how a bricklayer would level off, make sure, the brickwork was level. Just little things, little details like that, which you don't realize at the time, but you're actually learning just by being around those kind of people. And then as you get older, when you start making friends and when you want to be out with your friends on Saturdays or on the summer holidays, but instead you're having to go to work, those sort of sacrifices that you didn't realize were sacrifices actually, again, helped me be much more successful now, because you understand the hard work and the sacrifice that other people have to make, and being around that environment just really helped me sort of fine-tune all the details of craftsmanship, the business side of running a business. So being involved from top to bottom was just an amazing experience.
There's so many layers involved, right, in what you end up with as a result. Takes a lot of experience to get the layers before it right. So as you say, seeing what the bricklayer does will affect what happens with the plaster and will affect what happens with the paint and so on. So, as you said, without realizing it, these things were all taken on board. So your business was construction mainly until recently, where you've added your own flavor to the family business. So tell us about how that all came about.
So I've always had a passion for design, working with designers, and also, like I mentioned before, that my grandfather used to have a workshop in Uganda, and he was really passionate about details, craftsmanship, and that, he brought that when he came over to the UK. He was in sort of for him it was a dreamland. Like here in the UK, the craftsmanship is just second to none, and being experienced to that and exposed to that environment, and just going around shops and restaurants and other buildings and just seeing the quality that people produce here, it's always been in the back of my mind that one day I want to do something which is homage to him. And at the same time, it's a big interest of mine as well, being involved with the design side of what we do. So construction, as a construction company was growing, I've always had the passion to one day set up St. James to not only supplement Ethos Construction, but, build up its own, worthiness within its own right. So, I mean, that's the sort of angle which we're going for in terms of St. James, so working with different types of clients, high-end, working on really interesting projects, because I think the team within our workshop, and they all like the sort of variety of work that we get now.
So talking about design, so to people who are not involved in construction, obviously you've got the infrastructure that goes in, and at what stage does the design step in, and then what is that process that happens? So how much of that input comes from you, how much of that comes from the client, is client driven? Tell us where kind of construction stops and design starts.
So we like to get involved in terms of the design side for the furniture as soon as possible, or potentially when they've got a concept design done, because again, coming with the construction background, we can sort of give our advice in terms of this is what we suggest in terms of material, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of like fixing certain pieces of furniture so it works with the fabric of the building. So getting involved early doors really does help. So the design side and us coming involved, being part of that design, would be our most, we think the most efficient way to take projects forward.
And you work with private clients, and you work with multi-unit buildings, and I suppose when it comes to working with individual houses, it's kind of a lot more hands-on and the client's a lot more involved, whereas if you're in a multi-unit situation, it's a bit more investment driven and everything is a bit more standardized, right? So first of all, what's the big difference in working between one and the other? What would you say are the sort of top differences?
I think when you're doing a project and it's an end user, they're much more passionate. It's their own home, so they're going to be not as decisive because there's maybe too much choice and maybe so much uncertainty. But then having the right people around them makes such a big difference. So when we worked on projects where they've got an interior designer, there is an architect on board, maybe a cost consultant, when having that whole framework around them supports them moving forward. Whereas with a developer, or where it's much more financially driven. But now what we're actually finding is actually even the developers are now, because they're looking for that little added bonus, USP, they're much more passionate about the actual end results and making sure the finishes are of a certain quality, certain design, makes such a big difference. But generally that is the big difference we find, where it's this end user, it's because they're not exposed to that kind of environment, they're a bit more not indecisive, but they just need the right people guiding them. Whereas with a developer, they're in that experience arena, they know what they're doing, they know what the numbers are, and it's all about time as well. That's the big fundamental difference.
So if an end user comes to you, talk us through the support system that they'll experience here. So where would it start? What's stage one?
So stage one is basically we talk about the sort of brief, what do you want to achieve, get some inspiration in terms of like what you're trying to achieve in terms of look, feel. We'll take them to the workshop, or they can come here, to the showroom, or they can come to the workshop. And we do a lot of like experimenting with like different types of products, finishes, and then sort of take the next step is the design. So we'll, once you've got a concept design, we'll start developing that to make sure it's fit for purpose, it's what the client wants. And usually during that process, they might have an interior designer, or it's something that we can also do in-house as well. So either one, we work very collaboratively. So working together is a big ethos of ours. So working together, we'll get to that stage where once we've got a concept design, we'll do like an actual technical drawing, which is for manufacture, and then throughout the whole process, the client will be kept informed, so that at no point do they feel as though the project's lost, or is it, what direction are we going? We're very focused in that sense. And then once we're in the manufacturing, in the workshop, We give a time frame in terms of like this is going to be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, depending on what the product is, and then we take it to completion, where we also do our own installations. We have our own installation team. So everything from start to finish is coordinated in-house, and it's basically a seamless, project for the client.
So they can go literally from having their house built to being handed the keys over by you, and everything in between you can do in-house. Yeah. Or you can collaborate with their preferred designers or interior architects or what have you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for us, working like relationships is a big thing. So working with new designers or existing, we can pull a whole team together for a client if they wanted to, like architect, interior designer, engineer, a cost consultant. We can put the whole project together for them. Or we're happy to work with a design team that the client will put together. It's just
And, sometimes people think, oh, if I go down that route, it's going to be a lot more expensive. But actually, if you pay more money, but you get the job done on time, you're actually also saving money.
Definitely. I mean, we've found that, time is, big cost. Also having the right advice, if you get the project right from day one, you're not, it's not 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. It's always, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps forward. So it's always moving in the right direction. And having the right team involved and right people, people who know the industry inside out, like especially like an interior designer, they would actually ultimately save the client money through their time, because you're not having to source all the materials, and also with the sort of trade discounts that they would be getting with suppliers, and also with us as a contractor, we have a full-time buyer helping, ensuring that we're always getting the best deals in terms of material, product, and also the newest materials as well. I think technology is constantly changing, which is important to client now, with sustainability a big factor which drives people's decision making. So we're always on top of those new developments within construction and furniture.
And have you noticed, since you set up St James's, have you noticed a kind of trend towards something? And we talked a little bit about the developers now also wanting to have things that are designer, more kind of USB-ish, but I suppose the demand from the end user is that they kind of want a lifestyle. They don't just want a home.
Yes.
So is there anything else that you've noticed that has changed?
So sustainability is a very important issue for us nowadays. It's driving future trends. The clients will ask us where the wood is coming from to ensure it's from a sustainable source. We're using non-chemical paints. We reuse a lot of our material, so any waste we get, we reuse that to make smaller pieces of furniture. So nothing is wasted in this workshop. Wherever there's new machinery, we're getting we just invested in a new electrical forklift. So it's just things like that. Things like new materials that we're sort of working with. Like I mentioned before, we have a buyer who's always looking for the latest trends in material and how we can incorporate that into new furniture and new interior design sort of joinery. Also, as part of our sustainable drive, is something that is actually part of our ethos as well, and is something that we installed on day one when we built our factory. Is we have wood burning system. This system essentially creates heat through steam using all the offcuts and sawdust in our workshop. It also helped us reduce our carbon footprint because we don't have to have so many skip deliveries of taking away our waste. So it's been useful. It's been useful in that sense as well.
Everybody's experiencing delays in the supply chain, and we all have our ideas about what's causing it. But can you tell us from practical experience that you're having, what's that's been like, and how quickly are you finding that the quotes you give are no longer valid?
It's been really, the last couple of years have been very challenging in terms of just, first of all, it was getting the materials. Now it's just increased cost. For example, we use MDF or a lot, and the price of MDF has doubled within 6 months, and it's unheard of in our industry. So for us, pricing jobs is very difficult. For clients, it unfortunately means their budgets become higher. But we're finding that throughout the whole supply chain of not just in the furniture side, but also in construction as well, where we're doing concrete frames and The price of steel, they're not even holding it for a week, which is crazy. So, price would be working on a project, and within a week's time, the price of steel has gone up. So it's a very challenging time, and we're hoping within the sort of next 6 months things will settle down. It did settle down, but obviously the war in Ukraine, which is really unfortunate for everybody, has had an impact again. But hopefully a resolution can be found there, and things can settle down again.
And what, in your view, is causing all of these uncertainties and price changes?
It's going to be all the factors surrounding, like shipping costs, uncertainty about what is actually going to happen, Russia and fuel shortages. I think people are very uncertain. They just don't know. So people cannot make any sort of plans in terms of, like, this is what we're doing. We're talking to some developers who are, they've obviously bought sites maybe 12 months ago on certain budgets of construction, but those prices have now changed, so their end figures have changed, their financing has been impacted. So there's major things throughout the whole industry, which not just from construction impacts the furniture and the joinery side. So yeah, I think it's going to still take a bit of time for things to sort of settle down and see what happens in terms of that market.
So, I mean, being an expert with experience and, a solid foundation is actually really crucial to try and keep things as stable as possible in this industry. Coming into the construction industry or the design world fresh would be very difficult for somebody at this point in time. And that experience is really vital.
So we are very lean. I was quite a very lean team, so very efficient in terms of what we do. So that in terms of, like, our contracts managers will do lots of different facets, not just contract managing. Our site manager on site will be doing actual site managing, but he'll also get his hands-on as well when we need to be. The guys in the workshop, they can do different facets of joinery, so they can go into high-end finishing, but then they can go on to, if they need to go and sand something or spray something in the workshop, they're willing to do that as well. And that keeps us very sort of lean during difficult times. And at the same time, we're very proactive. So that's one of our ethos, is just to be, think ahead. We can see that material prices are what's happening with, scarcity of materials, price increases. So just being aware of those things and being quite a small tight operation, we can be fluid with the times, which makes us, for us, a really good selling point, because if our client's situation changes, we can adapt with them as well. So it gives them a bit of comfort to have someone like us on board. Basically, St. James Interiors is a one-stop shop for a client. So we do everything from initial concept design, working with the designer, to doing the technical designs, pricing, manufacture, and then installation. So that's basically, for a client, it should be a dream, in the sense that from the moment you appoint us or get in contact with us, it's a seamless process from start to finish. And having all of those trades in-house as well, and having our own machinery, being in central London, close to where all of our projects are going to be, gives the client a sense of comfort that, they don't have to worry about anything. And that is I would say, is our USP.
And obviously the proof is in the pudding. You've won some awards for your work. So tell us about those awards and tell us about what's next.
In 2020, we won an award for the Vittel Jesse desk, which was a crisscross table which we made with our CNC. That was for the Design Atoll Awards and for the Yacht and Aviation. And in 2021, for the Dan desk, we won an award for the furniture range. So that was a great surprise for us as well. So we're really happy with that. It's given us more exposure. It's given us more name within the industry, which is what we've been looking to do since we started. And in terms of next steps, we're looking to build projects. We build bigger relationships with interior designers, architects, take the company to a slightly larger size, and also maybe launch our own furniture range as well, because we've had such good reactions to the pieces that we've created. Even some of the pieces which we've done as gifts for clients, they've been so well received that it's given us the confidence to maybe pursue that avenue moving forward.
Well, I don't blame you. Winning 2 awards already for 2 pieces of furniture would give me a lot of confidence as well. Thank you for talking to us today and sharing your insights and educating some of our listeners in the ins and outs of construction and design.
Thank you, Farnaz. It was really lovely having you here today, and we hope it was really interesting for people to learn. And if anybody wants any more information, then welcome to come contact us.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you're an expert and have a story to share and specialize in something that services the super prime London market, please get in touch.
Thanks for listening to the London Property Podcast. Head over to londonproperty.co.uk and subscribe to our newsletter to receive latest updates.